Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are playing Monowhite Painter, also known as Plumber. So I've tried a fair few different versions of Monowhite Painter on the channel. I was sort of a big proponent of the Grindstone Forge deck. They use Stoneforge and stuff to have a different attack line, but since the initiative has hit, that sort of trying to do aggro as like an alternative plan to use up your opponent's resources just doesn't really work in Monowhite Painter anymore, because there's no control decks that you need to grind the resources away of, and if your threats just aren't as good as the best threats, then you just kind of get buried. So we've tried all sorts of weird and wonderful builds of that, and now we're going back to like the classic one. So this was the innovation of Eddie the Intern, who is really put this deck together in the first place and got some good results with it, and then sort of sent it off to some people like Phil over at Thraben U, who played it, and then it sort of helped grow the deck when more people saw it, and now it's sort of a bit of a fringe painted deck, but it's definitely a real deck that's putting up some relatively good numbers. So this is basically a dedicated combo deck rather than sort of an aggro deck with a combo finish like the other ones sometimes are. So what is this deck aiming to do? We're aiming to put Grindstone into play with a Painter's Servant, so that when we activate the Grindstone, all the cards in our opponent's library will be the same colour, so we'll mill their entire library out. In order to do this, we've got 4 Urza Saga, which can give us a good beatdown plan too. We have these 4 Urza Saga to find ourselves some Grindstone, and we have this Oswald Fiddlebender, who lets you Birthing Pod away artifacts to find slightly bigger artifacts. It's only sorcery speed though, and he is a legend, so he's got some weaknesses to him, but if you ever get to untap and start using him, you can usually put a game away relatively sharpish. Then we have the sort of the core parts of the deck in terms of we've got a few Mother Runes to protect our painter. We've got some Esper Sentinels to give us some card advantage and tax our opponents, slow them down a little bit, or give us the resources to go off quicker. We have these 4 Ingenious Smith, which is kind of like one of the central things that identifies us as Plumber, because the Ingenious Smith is sort of what you cut in the other builds, but I now think that this is the best build given the initiative being so big at the moment. It's the most played deck right now. So what this does, comes into play, lets you impulse for an artifact. Pretty good. And every time you play an artifact, you get a +1/+1 counter, but only once per turn. So you can't grow him super massive super quickly, but the Smith is going to be doing a lot of work for us. It's a solid creature. It gives you a beatdown plan sometimes. It's a nice thing that doesn't get killed by Meltdown if you're into a situation like that. But it's also just going to be digging into our deck and finding us the pieces we need. And it can find us a whole lot of goodies, including some lands in our mana base. So we also have these Ethersworn Canonist. If you play out a Canonist and you've got the combo assembled, if your opponent casts a removal spell, you can kill them and they won't be able to remove your paint in response. So you can kind of lock your opponent out of spells, and because we're playing a load of artifacts, we can play underneath the Canonist and still hold up our combo. So this is just a really good card. It also stops decks from like cantripping, and it's good against elves, and it's good against other combo decks too. So it's a very powerful card that is really worth playing, and this deck doesn't have any trouble casting it. So the shortcake painted decks, they splash white pretty much just for this and Enlightened Tutor. That's how good this card is. And then we have a lot of singletons to go and find. So we've got a Phyrexian Revoker. So there's a Pithy Needle that attacks our opponent. So that's pretty cool. We have a Crucible of Worlds. As you probably have guessed, it's my favourite Magic card, so I'm definitely going to play it. But it's actually good in this deck because it's only a one-of that we can find when we need it. And we have 4 Urza Saga and 4 Wasteland. So recurring either of these is very powerful with the Crucible of Worlds and can just outright win you a game. So that's pretty nice. We've got this selection of tutor targets here. So we've got 2 portable holes. These are just good removal for all sorts of things, from Collector Roof to Chalice of the... well, maybe not Chalice of the Void, unless we're getting it off of the Fiddlebender. So if we tutor up a 0-drop, like an Ancient Den, one of our 0-drops here, or an Urza Saga token, we can go and find the portable hole to get rid of Chalice. It's got a few other uses as well. It just comes in really handy and buys you time. You can always use it to take a guy out for a little bit, or even take out an Urza Saga token from an opponent, and then you can flip it into like the painter when you need to win, so it's quite useful that way. We have 2 Hope of Ghirapur. Now, I've played one of these in my build, but Eddie assures me that we want 2 now, and I think that's a good shout actually, because you can use this to slow your opponent down quite significantly. There's a lot of combo in the format because there's basically no control anymore. It's just Delver, Initiative, and combo decks. Like between Delver and the Initiative, I think it now makes up 45% of the meta between those 2 decks. I was checking the stats earlier today. So the Hope of Ghirapur against all the combo decks that sort of make up the rest of it. This can buy us some turns. It can also force action from our opponent, so it can give us a clear run to combo. So this is kind of like our sort of version of Silence, but it has a lot of utility with the rest of the things we're doing. And because it's a creature flying, it can actually take the initiative back relatively well. Have a Shadowspear, which is pretty much standard as a Saga package these days. Sometimes we need to beat down. We have quite a lot of artifacts, so their Sagas can be quite big. Game 1 against Delver, they struggle a bit against an Urza Saga game plan, so that gives us the game 1 relatively well. Obviously, if we get Wasteland off of that, that's not ideal, but as soon as if we get an Urza Saga to stick and we can put a Shadowspear, we can race a lot of things. We have a Soulguide Lantern, standard graveyard hate. It's got a cantrip on it if we need it, and because we're trying to mill out our opponent, we need some way of dealing with our opponent's graveyard sometimes, so this is a good one that we can go and tutor for. We have 1 Aether Vial, which may sound weird. So previous builds of this deck had 3. Aether Vial is a very bad card right now. We have 1 in here that we can fetch with the Urza Saga in case we need to try and put some guys in uncounterably. But you could probably cut this from the list at the moment. So instead of running the other 2 Aether Vials that would normally be run here, just so we can sort of bypass those control decks, we've got 2 Lotus Petals. These are to speed us up a little bit against all the combo decks in the format and initiative, which kind of need you to play to the board quickly. They're also 0 drops to let us tutor into Grindstone off of an Oswald. They have a lot of synergy with the things our deck's trying to do. We have 1 Mox Opal because sometimes you need your Saga to tap for mana, and if it's going away, you need to get another mana source. So if you make in your tokens, this will come in and be able to be used as a mana source. So that's pretty much it. A few little things in the land. We've got an Eiganjo. It's kind of like a free 23rd land that can kind of be a spell or a land depending on what you need. We've got a couple of Karakas, which are just sort of standard for white decks. And we have a big chunk of plains, so we should be alright against Blood Moon effects and so on. The notable absence from this main deck, in my opinion, was the Pithing Needle. But I was chatting to Eddie about it, and he made a very convincing argument as to why it's not in there. So it doesn't really do anything against Delver because we don't really want a Pithing Needle Wasteland because we have our own and we can win that fight with Crucibles. And so we don't really want it for Delver. And we don't really want it for the initiative decks because the initiative decks don't really have much in the way of targets outside of maybe a Walking Ballista and the Touch of the Spirit Realm, but we're not really too bothered about that, so we'd rather not have that in the deck. And Reanimator, yes, you can Pithing Needle the Grizzlebrand, but at that point you're probably in a bit of trouble anyway, and I think it's just sort of the horse has already bolted at that point and you should be trying to combo them out or you're dead on the next turn sort of thing. So those are the 3 top decks at the moment, which between them make up nearly 50% of the format, I believe. So we don't really want a Pithing Needle for them, and for some of the combo decks, you know, it's okay, but then for some of them it doesn't do that much, so not having it kind of makes sense when Hope of Ghirapur against the combo decks can do a very similar thing. So that's the logic on that one, and that makes sense to me. I think maybe you could cut the Aether Vial for Pithing Needle, because I don't think the Aether Vial is good, although the Aether Vial being another Lotus Petal might also be good here. So that's the main deck. Sideboard-wise, we've got some pretty targeted hate. 4 pieces of Graveyard Hate here. A 5th piece of Graveyard Hate in Grafdigger's Cage that we can also find off of the Saga, but this is also really good against things like Elves, so it turns off Green Sun Zenith Natural Order. So this is much better than having a Pithing Needle that we would normally think is okay because it can name Wire with Symbiote and Quirion Ranger. So the Grafdigger's Cage, pretty good at locking stuff down. It's not too shabby in the Red Painter matchup as well because you can stop them being able to do all their Welder shenanigans, which is kind of what their deck does that our deck doesn't really do. So there's that. We got 4 Swords to Plowshares. We're going to need to kill some creatures. Here they are. Pretty straightforward. 2 Deafening Silence. This is because, like, you know, a big chunk of the deck meta at the moment, like 40% or whatever, is just like combo deck. Maybe more than 40%, maybe 50% now. So having more tools for that is great. And we have 4 Hushbringer. So this is obviously for the initiative matchup mainly, but it's also going to be very useful against Doomsday and Elves, so it's got a lot of utility. This is better than Torpor Orb because it actually does stuff. So if you watch one of my previous videos where I was playing Phyrexian Dreadnought, Mono White Painter, the Torpor Orbs were really bad. Yes, you can tutor for them with Oswald, and they have artifact synergies, but they don't impact the board. And sometimes it's too late, whereas this can fly, so it can fly over and gain you a tiny bit of life, but it can also take the initiative off of people because it's a creature with evasion. So that's pretty nice. And also it does mess with dying triggers, so things like Bridge from Below, which sometimes come up. There's probably a few other bits and pieces there. But yeah, so this is a much better card in my opinion than Torpor Orbs. Also doesn't get hit by all the hate they're bringing in against us. So if you're playing against someone like Oops or Spells, they've got so many things they need to hit. They've got these creatures, they've got these ley lines, they've got Grafdigger's Cage, Deafening Silence. So it's really hard for those decks to push through all the different types of permanents we're displaying that are problematic for them. So same against Elves, this is quite difficult for them because they're probably not going to have much in the way of creature destruction in post-sideboard. They're probably going to have artifact destruction, things like Force of Vigor, so we can really get some work done there. So that's the deck. We've a bit of a detailed one here because this is a deck that is quite near and dear to my heart. I have this deck in foil with masterpieces, although I don't have the Lotus Petals because they're quite a new addition. But I have all the rest of these cards in foil with masterpiece opals and things like that. So it's and Painter's Grindstones. So it's something that's very close to my heart and I really enjoy. And we're going to play it today and see how we do. Hope we can do Eddie proud. We got this specific list off of him today because I've been trying all the weird and wonderful builds, while he's just been fine-tuning the classic Plumber build that he originally made in the first place. All right, just before we jump into a league, let me just say that I really appreciate the likes and some of the really nice comments I've been getting lately. People saying some nice things about my content, which means a lot to me and makes it worth doing this sort of thing. And subscribers, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing and it's the best way to support my channel. If I can get 1,000 subscribers, then I can start getting some money. And if I get enough money, then I can play some more weird and wonderful decks without having to worry about the hit to my wallet when I play some terrible brew that goes 1-4. All right, with that done and dusted, let's jump into a Legacy League with Monowhite Painter, aka Plumber. Our opponent's mulligan to 6. I don't think we can keep this hand. If we get the same hand again with just 2 Esper Sentinels, it's not really any difference in power level either. We're kind of looking for like Ingenious Smith, combo pieces, Saga, that sort of stuff. So this hand really taxes our opponent's mana quite heavily, which I like. And we have half of our combo. It's also the harder half of our combo to find because as I can find the other bits, I think we can keep this one. And we have a choice of what we're binning off here. Our opponent's mulligan to 6, which tends to make me think combo decks tend to mulligan slightly more, but it's only 6, so it could just be anything. So I think we're probably going to ship a Wasteland here. I think 2 Wastelands should be plenty. It's either the Wasteland or the Canonist. I think it's the Wasteland, just so we have the diversification of ways of attacking our opponent's game plan. Could be the Mother, but I think having the Mother to protect our painter is going to be what's required. Or just drawing a removal spell. Okay, a Chrome Box. Is this going to be Initiative? Probably. It is the most played deck. Okay, there's a Solitude. And a Petal. And an Ancient Tomb. So this is the turn 1 Seasoned Engineer, probably. Just a Thalia. Interesting. So our opponent's got 1 card in hand. So I think we can afford to just play the Wasteland here and take 2 for a couple of turns. Like, if Thalia is the best thing that they can assemble, then I don't think there's too much of a problem. Like, we can take quite a bit of damage from this without worrying. Opponent's still got 1 card in hand. Now, the issue if we play this Wasteland out now is that we're going to need 2 draw steps to find another land. Now, I think that's pretty reasonable to have 2 draw steps. And we've got 23 plus 2 petals. So that's like 25 draws minus 3. So that's 22 draws. So we're looking at about half of our stuff. But I think we just want to shut our opponent off here. I think that's the route we want to take this. Again, this 2 damage a turn is not going to kill us on its own. We need to stop our opponent from being able to deploy other threats. Because all of their other threats are incredibly strong and outclass us, whereas this is something we can play through quite easily. Okay, our own Eiganjo. So now we're going to play out this Mother of Runes. And next time we're probably looking at playing out the Ingenious Smith. The Canonist isn't going to do anything in this matchup, and I'd rather have had the other Wasteland, but beggars can't be choosers. So this is the last turn this Thalia can attack unless our opponent has a removal spell. Because we can play this, give it protection, and then it can deal the 1 damage. Okay, a Mox Opal. Does that change anything here? I don't think so. It means we can get a guaranteed counter on our Ingenious Smith this turn, though. What have you got for us, deck? Just a Canonist. Sure. Oh, we can't play this out this turn, actually, no, because of the Thalia. Sure, we pass. So we have the ability to steal the initiative if that's the thing that we want to do, and they manage to get the initiative because we can give a guy pro and go through, but their deck is absolutely chock full of removal, so I'm not a big fan of tapping down on Mother. I don't have to. Okay, so they got a Cavern of Souls. Okay, this feels like a bait. This feels like they either have another Thalia or a removal spell. So I don't think I need to take the bait just yet. Especially since we can grow this Smith soon. Soul Guide Lantern. That's not really where we want to be in this particular matchup. So what are we doing here? We kind of need another land here. The Mox Opal is very much not a land right now. Do we just want another guy here? We can play the Hope of Ghirapur, which means we can definitely steal the initiative if they play the initiative out. Yeah, that seems fine to me. We're going to pump our Smith. And then we can play this out, paying the 1. So it's just in play for next turn. We're not going to get a counter off this one. So we have a choice now if we attack with the Ingenious Smith or not. I think we can attack this turn. We're probably still not blocking the Thalia for the same reasons we didn't last time. They clearly want us to tap our Mother of Runes, so I don't really want to do that. Unless our opponent casts a removal spell and we can blank it, so at least we get value out of the tapping down. Right, our opponent had another turn cycle where they didn't do anything, so our Wastelands have bought us at least 2 more turns. All it cost us was 6 life, which sounds like a lot against a deck that's ostensibly an aggro deck, but they're kind of a combo deck, and their combo is playing an initiative creature and keeping an initiative creature. Okay, so this is a chalice for 1. That's fine. We can use our Saga to get around that when the time comes, hopefully. So we have this artifact creature that we can't play. We can play this Canonist. It's better to play the Canonist or the Painter. I think we're probably on Canonist here. Like, we can throw the Canonist under the bus if something needs to happen for that. Considering our opponent could have cast an initiative guy, I'm not entirely sure why they kept the hand that they did. A Walking Ballista. So if we'd have played the Painter out, we'd have been in a better spot here. So probably losing our Mother of Runes. So we're going to give the Canonist protection from white. Right, even if we did play the Painted Servant, it can protect itself once, but then the second comes off. So at least it would trade, I suppose. Alright. A Crucible of Worlds. This is going to cost us 1 more mana because of the Thalia. Interesting. Can we bait our opponent into... Part of the problem here is they can ping this if we go to combat straight away. Interesting. Do I think they're going to block and let their Thalia die? If they have another Thalia, they might. So the issue is they can block here and ping for 1, so it will just trade these 2, and then the Thalia will live. So I have to play a creature first. So I think we're playing this one. So now this is big enough to tangle. Just going to take the 4. Sure. I suspect our opponent is just going to put some counters on their Walking Ballista at this point, because we do have a nice squishy 1/1 that they quite like to pump their guy up, kill this, and get something. But if they have something like a Seasoned Engineer, Touch of the Spirit Realm. Okay, so this is going to take our Ingenious Smith away. Sure, that's fine. So our opponent can't cast a Solitude this turn. I would very much like to draw a mana source here. Okay, we've drawn a mana source. So we don't get to play a land out this turn, but it means that from next turn we can start putting our opponent in the dirt with our Wastelands. We still need an Urza Saga to get our Grindstone at some point, and our opponent's certainly got some turns here. Walking Ballista, get a counter. Sure, so we're going to lose our Hope of Ghirapur when they see fit. So that's our turn. So we play out our Wasteland. I think we Wasteland. I think we do hit the City of Traitors. Even though it disappears on its own, we have so many ways of pushing things through. Now, if we play out our Painted Servant here, our opponent might be able to stack a count on this. So I think we're going to attack with our Hope first and bait out the counter onto this. Yeah, there we go. As expected. And then we can play this out, and they're not going to have enough mana to get this done. So we're not going to name white because our opponent's got Solitude in their deck. So we're probably going to name red here. We can name blue and maybe make them... If we'd attacked slightly differently, we could have named blue. We'll name blue anyway, though. Our opponent hasn't shown us anything to make us believe that they are playing Force of Wills or anything. There was a brief while where people were playing blue initiative decks before they realised it was best just to be like white or Boros. A Caracas, sure. So that's going to be a problem if we want to do Oswald lines, but we have all these Wastelands, so that's not too much of an issue. Touch of the Spirit Realm, so probably losing our Crucible here. Although they might be scared of the combo. Yeah, they are scared of the combo, sure. That's not what this game is about right now. Okay, so the only land we would play over a Wasteland is an Urza Saga. Okay, so we have the Wasteland. So play this out. We will Wasteland our opponent's Caracas, and then we will play this Oswald Fiddlebender. So we can slowly grind up the chain to get a Painter and stuff, but part of the issue we have is because we can't make a 1-drop, we'll have to crack this into a 2 and then into a crack this into a 1, then into a 2. But if we can draw a another 0-drop, we can change things around. That's what we're doing here. We're putting a counter on this guy. Sure. So they're probably going to trade this for the Oswald now. Sure. Yeah. Okay. So we traded the Oswald, but we have a pretty powerful play here. It's just to keep grinding them out with Wastelands. And we're ahead on damage as well. Right. So here comes Wasteland. We're going to hit their Cavern of Souls because we don't mind if they take damage. And I'm just going to pass the turn. Okay. We've got a land there. They're paying 3. Okay, they're going to 1. Palace Jailer. Sure. It's a pretty good one. So we're losing one of our little guys. I don't think they can attack here. I think that's a bit risky. Maybe they need to make risky plays. But I guess if you've got the Monarch, you can kind of play the game as you see fit, really. And there's a Saga. Okay, so this is the one we wanted. Our opponent can't tap their Ancient Tomb anyway. I think we play this out this turn. This will give us the win in a couple of turns, because we'll be able to get a lifelinking guy. Now our opponent's going to be drawing 2 cards a turn, which is not ideal for us. They can only cast 1 spell a turn, but things like the Solitude they can cast on our turn. They're going to get feisty with Athalia? They're not. Sure. I'm just going to draw some cards up. They didn't play a land. Right, so we have the combo there as well if we want it. So we're going to play out our Wasteland. Going to Wasteland their white source, because the Ancient Tomb will kill them if they tap it. We have 3 artifacts now, so we will do this. And this will name blue again. So you've got them on both fronts, which is something that you find happens quite a lot in this deck, where you have the Urza Saga kill lined up alongside the Painter kill. Alright, what have you got for us? Just make this now. So we're in their end step. Alright, we got the concession there. So we can go and get the Shadowspear there, or we can go and get Grindstone, and then we just reblock by the Saga because of the power of Crucible of Worlds. So yeah, that went relatively to plan. So now we've got these 4 Hushbringers. We definitely want those. We definitely want these Swords to Plowshares as well. This is not a game where we require Soul Guide Lantern. This is not a game where we require Phyrexian Revoker either. The Oswald seems less good in this matchup because of how they have the Caracas, but it does let us get the Crucible, so it's a little bit tricky. We definitely don't need the Vial. The portable holes aren't great. We can take one of them out, but I don't think we want to keep one if we're keeping in the Ingenious Smiths. The Canonists are bad here, so they go, and we're probably trimming on Oswald because it's a legend. How does that look to me? Seems pretty decent, I think. We've got maximum amounts of our combo pieces in. The Esper Sentinel isn't great, but I think it's okay enough. Do I want anything different here? I don't think so. So if our opponent doesn't make a turn 1 play against us, we can start Wastelanding them again, which was quite good last time, and we also have a Lotus Petal that we can get something out potentially if we want to as well. So I think we keep this one. Our opponents begin with 7 cards though, so probably dead. Ancient Tomb, Lotus Petal. If this is White Plume Adventurer, we probably just lose the game. Walking Ballista. Okay, that's fine. Walking Ballista for 1 isn't really going to harm us here. So I think we go Wasteland. Get rid of this. I'm down for playing a Mother of Runes here. The Mother of Runes is going to eat the Walking Ballista here. So it's a bit of a 2 for 1 here, but it's going to force their only thing in play off the board. I don't have to do it right away. They get 1 damage off of it first. Okay, they got another Ancient Tomb. But we have another Wasteland. Interesting. Alright. Same plan as the previous game. So now we keep this Mother of Runes back so that they have to use a Ballista on it. It seems unlikely they're going to want to Plow or Solitude it, but it's possible. Okay. Land tapped. Sure. I'm really surprised that that isn't coming in. So we have an interesting option here. So we can portable hole their Lotus Petal. I don't think playing this Esper Sentinel is going to do anything, but portable holding their Lotus Petal is a play I quite like. The other option is portable holding the Walking Ballista, but all that happens is we lose our Mother of Runes there and then. So I'm going to play this one out. The Mana Denial strategy. One of my favourite things to do in Magic the Gathering is Wasteland my opponents into oblivion. So Crucible of Worlds is my favourite card, but Wasteland is one of my very favourite cards too. Okay. So our Mana Denial strategy, not so great right now. Okay, an Ingenious Smith. So this might get a counter off of the Walking Ballista here. We'll see. I'll take this Crucible of Worlds. That's not going to make our opponent happy. So, again, we're just keeping our Mother of Runes protecting us. If we need to. Now, if they play a Seasoned Dungeoneer, that's going to be pretty bad news for us. Because that card is just very good, but they will lose their City of Traitors to do so. I assume it's going to name Human. Yeah, okay, this is a Seasoned Dungeoneer. So, drawing our Plow would be great. We can, like, Plow and then get into sort of like a Crucible Wasteland lock. Oh, they're just putting a counter on the Ballista. Interesting. Okay. That feels alright for us. They're pinging that down now, sure. This is colourless, so I can't use Mother Runes to protect. Giver of Runes, though, that would work. Okay, a Hushbringer. This seems like a fine one to play. We want to keep our Mother of Runes up so they can't Solitude our Hushbringer. Now, there is a bit of non-bow synergy with the Hushbringer and the Ingenious Smith, because obviously our Ingenious Smith won't trigger if a Hushbringer is in play. However, the Hushbringer is going to do so much more damage to our opponent that I think it's well worth doing. City of Traitors is getting another counter on. They're trading this. Okay, they're just doing a Dungeoneer this turn. Sure. And then next turn, or they can attack with this, and if they get the right thing on it, then they can... Oh no, they won't explore onto this because it's the wrong creature type. Sure. So next turn they're hoping to deal with the Hushbringer. Urza Saga is a pretty strong one. We have a couple of options here. I think what I'm inclined to do is play out a Fiddlebender and an Esper Sentinel here. And the other option is to play out the Painter and the Sentinel. And that way we can keep our Fiddlebender protected from even a Walking Ballista. Sorry, our Painter protected from that. Sure, let's try this out. There's an Esper Sentinel. And there's this guy. We're going to name blue. Is it blue or white is the question. Because if we name white and we give our guy protection and then our painter dies, it's still going to be protected from white is the thing. I think we actually do that play. The Solitudes are switched off at the moment anyway. I think we can attack with our Hushbringer because this is going to attack next turn anyway. So we'll get a little bit of lifelink. This might be able to gain us an additional turn of time. And then next turn, we have choices. We're probably playing Crucible and Wastelanding our opponent. And then the turn after, we can go and get Grindstone with a Mother of Runes backup. So we can't block this because it's going to be unblockable. We get to see the top card of our opponent's library. Elite Spellbinder. Is that good enough? Like, if they put the Elite Spellbinder into play, we don't get our Crucible. But that's probably fine. We can also nail the Emeria with our Wasteland so that they can't cast. So like, okay, they're just adding counters to that. Okay, that feels awkward for you. That's not going to do the things you want, I don't think. Unless they have double Solitude. So, play this out. Play a Wasteland. We hit their only white source. This can cast the Elite Spellbinder, but it can't cast the what's it called? The White Plume Adventurer, sorry. So I'm just thinking about a lot of things right now. So we're going to bash, get ourselves a little bit of health there. Next turn we have a Grindstone combo available with Mother of Runes protection. And if that doesn't work, we replay an Urza Saga and we just play a Saga game. Because if they have to invest their resource into killing the Painted Servant, the Hushbringer is going to stay in play and keep their deck under wraps. So they need to have double Solitude here. Can I have a card off your Chrome Mox, please? No. Okay. Sure. So this means they probably have Plough and Solitude. That's my read that they're playing the Chrome Mox out here. Unless they play a spell off of it right now. So they're pinging this. So this is going to give it self-protection from white. Now, if they kill our Painter, that's annoying, but we can just keep playing it as a Saga game here. Sure. So they're just burning their Walking Ballista to kill our Mother of Runes. That's not ideal, but that's fine. And they're clearly holding up a Source of Plowshares here. Oh, or not. So this is the Elite Spellbinder. A Touch of the Spirit Realm. Okay, sorry, they put the Elite Spellbinder in the graveyard, didn't they? Sorry. So this is going to take our Painter away, I think. Sure. So our game plan now is Shadowspearing our opponent to death. So we draw another Hushbringer. So let's make a token. Let's get ourselves a Shadowspear. Okay, so revealed an Eiganjo. So then we're playing our Urza Saga again. What a powerful combo. So we're not blocking with our guys anyway, so we'll attack with all our guys. Next turn, our construct's going to be large. Like we win the race without the Shadowspear, but we have the Shadowspear if we need it. So ploughing our Hushbringer. Sure. So this means they're probably playing an initiative guy this turn. Or they're playing like an Elite Spellbinder or something, or a... Oh no, they said they've got the other land, so it is one of the initiative guys, I have to imagine. Probably the White Plume. Oh no, it could be another Seasoned Engineer. A Palace Jailer. That's a very strong one. Sure. I imagine this Seasoned Engineer is attacking here. Yeah, sure. So drawing a plough would be good. Okay, Seasoned Engineer. Revealing Seasoned Engineer. Okay. Not the best for us. This Monarch is going to do some work for them as well. Ingenious Smith and our Urza Saga ticking up. Okay, what are our choices here? If we put the Shadowspear on this guy, they're just going to kill... they're just going to take the trade here. So if we get a Fiddlebender out now, we can get Fiddlebender and Ingenious Smith, or Fiddlebender Hushbringer. Fiddlebender Hushbringer gives us the combo next turn. If we play the Hushbringer out first, okay, so then we're playing out our Wasteland from our graveyard, I think, here. So we play this guy out. And this gives us the combo next turn because the Fiddlebender can cycle our Sentinel into a Painter. This can get our Grindstone. Now, Touch the Spirit Realm can mess with that. So can like other removal spells against our Painter, but they're using a touch already. We don't get to find out what they're spending on. Okay, we got a Grindstone from our hand. Interesting. So what is this going to target? This is going to target our Hushbringer. Okay, so that means our opponent's got a Solitude in hand, I believe. A Caracas. Yikes, that's really annoying. So this is one of the reasons why I trimmed on Fiddlebenders. It's just so brutal. So we're dead next turn. So what is our plan here? That's a good question. So making a token isn't going to stop us from killing the Seasoned Engineer, is it? So I think we are making mana from this. And we say okay. So what do we want here? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana available. So 2 of that into an Ingenious Smith would leave us with 1, 2, 3, 4 mana available. So that won't be enough to get us where we need to be. How do we beat what our opponent has assembled in front of us right now? So if we stick the Shadowspear on our Esper Sentinel and attack with it, then our opponent has to hit the Explore. So we probably want to be doing that, which means we're probably taking this Mox Opal for this turn, just to give us the mana. So this has to equip on here, and they can just let us take the Monarch if they want to. We've got this 1 mana floating here, haven't we? So we use this, and is it the Wasteland that we tap here, or is it the Eiganjo? I think we tap the Eiganjo here and play this guy out. What do you got for us? Hope of Ghirapur. Okay. So this guy's going to attack. Now, if we get the Monarchy, we might be able to draw a plough. So they're letting us get the 2 life. Sure. So now we can play out... what is the best play we can play here? So we can Wasteland our opponent off of Caracas and off of their white source. So they basically can't continue to commit to the board here. We really need to use our time more effectively here. Oh my god, I just realised the clock. I'm so sorry. We're going to lose this game due to clocking, I think, here. So let's waste this Amira as well. Okay, now our opponent has to have a removal spell here. We might be able to buy ourselves another turn. I should probably just concede because we've only got 4 minutes left. What am I doing? Okay. That was big enough. Sure. So we should have conceded earlier. I didn't keep a note of the time. I was too invested in the game. Is there anything we'd like to do differently in the next game? I don't think so. I think this all makes perfect sense. The Esper Sentinel was much better on the play as well. Pretty much guaranteed to get us draws. All right, we'll submit, and we're going to play super fast and have to concentrate. Sorry. Try my best to narrate here. So I have Wasteland, Urza Saga, Portable Hole. Is this good enough to keep? Yes. It's a hand that can win us the game quick enough. So we just play the Saga out on 1, the Painter out on 2, and then we go for the combo. If our opponent doesn't have a way of killing our guy, then we can win the game. City of Traitors. Sure, it's going to be a White Plume. We can race a White Plume with this hand. Sure. It's not pretty, but we can do it. Ingenious Smith. That's kind of our backup plan if this fails. I think we have to go for it here. We're under the clock because of my problems. All right. I took too long thinking about things and explaining different lines and not paying attention to the clock. Apologies for that. Means we're probably not going to get the perfect played game this turn. Okay, so they scryed, which suggests to me that they're looking for a removal spell. Where do they put them? 2 on the bottom. That makes me think that our opponent does not have a removal spell. We do have to grind in our turn as well, due to the nature of our Urza Saga here. Sure. City of Traitors into another City of Traitors. This is a Walking Ballista, I believe, for 2. Sure, you can hit me. We're definitely not blocking. Oh, we're not going for it here, that's for sure. So we float off of this. Can get ourselves a Grindstone. Get ourselves this. Actually, this target our opponent. We got Solitude. They've conceded. Okay, so we had plenty of time. 3 whole minutes. All right. So, yeah. We had a really, really grindy game. Another really, really grindy game. And then we just had a oops, I combo. So we got a win against the initiative. This felt better than all the other builds I played of White Painter against initiative, to be honest with you, so far. But obviously, small sample size. And our opponent's hand in game 1, I thought was quite poor and they shouldn't have kept it. But there we are. The power of Wasteland, Crucible coming in tops, which is what you want to see when you sign into the channel Crucible of Words, right? Okay, let's go on to the next round. So we're on the draw. This hand is going to lose pretty hard to several things. So Wastelands are going to be bad against us. Blood Moon is going to be bad for us. But if we can draw a white source in our first 2 draw steps, this hand is great. Is that something... Although it might be too slow against some matchups as well, to be honest. Oh, Crucible, Wastelands. So, in a world without initiative, I would snap this hand off because it beats so many decks. Because like the fair decks really struggle against multiple sagas. But I think in the initiative world, we have to mulligan that one. What does this do? This gets us... Yikes. Not a big fan of this one. We can Ingenious Smith on 1 if we need to. Yikes, indeed. I think... Oh, God. Am I going to keep this? We have 2 draw steps to find mana. We can play out the Sentinel to help us get mana. I'm going to keep it and pitch the Grindstone. Believe in the heart of the cards, I think, here. So the Urza Saga is probably going to be getting us a Mox. Although it might get us a Grindstone depending on what the game looks like at that point. Okay, 8 cast, I'm guessing. Could be Delver. Okay, so it's Delver. So this is traditionally a pretty good matchup for our deck. But our hand might cause us some issues here. Okay, so we've drawn a white source. So I'm going to play this out. We're going to play this out around a daze. And then we're going to play out our Esper Sentinel. If they want to bolt it now, we get a card out of it. If they daze it, I guess we pay our petal. This gives our opponent a choice to make if they have a daze, though. Okay, they're going for a Brainstorm first. So we've made them use a Brainstorm suboptimally because they're not getting to fetch immediately after it. Sure. Now, they might not be Delver, but Mishra's Bauble and Volcanic Island does scream Delver to me because they want that for the Delirium. So let's see. Unholy Heat. Are they going to pay 1 for this? They are. Okay, sure. So they spend their turn answering that. That's fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if they have a fetch down, they can make a Murktide next turn. So we are probably priced into playing out our Soul Guide Lantern this turn. We really want the Soul Guide Lantern to resolve if our opponent has Murktide Regent. Right, we're going to play out Smith first. We could be playing into a daze here with our Soul Guide Lantern. But the Ingenious Smith, the upside of being able to put counters on this is pretty big. Alternatively, we can try and hold back an Urza Saga next turn. But we're kind of hoping that this goes and finds us an Ancient Den. That would be the best draw here. Okay, so it drew the thing I wanted it to draw us. Excellent. So I do think we can play this now. Let's see if they daze this one or not. If they daze this one, it still means they can Murktide next turn, unfortunately. So we're in a bit of bother. We could have sequenced that differently to guarantee hitting the Murktide. Okay, it doesn't look like they're hiding us. Okay, that's good news. So now we're just going to be doing some Urza Sagaing. So we can make this on this turn. And then on their turn we can make a Saga token which will pump this. Okay, our opponent didn't do anything with their turn 3 there. Interesting. We've got land, instant, artifact. So if they try and unholy heat this guy. So we can make this into a 3-3, but we can't make it into a 4-4. So we just have to let that go. Well, we do get to play the Urza Saga game now, which is pretty potent against Delver. There's a non-zero chance to have Dress Down as like one of their like 2 flex slots, I guess, but it seems very unlikely in game 1. So what are we getting with this? We can get our combo piece, or we can get some mana, or we can get the Shadowspear. Now our life total isn't really under threat right now, so maybe we want the mana, or we can get the Aether Vial here and start ticking up actually. Yeah, we'll get the Aether Vial. I like that. If they had a creature in play, we'd be more inclined to... Okay, so they're petty thefting it, sure. Not ideal for us, but fine enough, I guess. So this can get a counter next turn and put in a Hope. So we might be able to kill a Brazen Borrower in combat if that's their threat of choice. Because they haven't shown us a Murktide that they could have played a number of turns ago, so... Alright. A Wasteland. So we're going to lose our Caracas or our Ancient Den here. Probably the Ancient Den? Yeah, okay. This means that we draw other Caracas. It's bad for us, and also it shrinks our construct. Alright, so we'll put a counter on our Aether Vial. This Aether Vial is not going to go past 2 because our deck doesn't play anything bigger than 2 drops. A Crucible of Worlds. That's going to be tricky, isn't it? So this will attack. And we'll activate this to get 1 more extra point of damage in off of the Hope of Ghirapur. They might have an Abrade in their deck. It's certainly possible. Again, I mentioned there's like 2-ish flex slots in Delver. But I suspect it looks like they're more down the Brazen Borrower route. Okay, so probably losing our Caracas here. So this Crucible of Worlds would be great if it was in play right now, but that's not the situation we're living in. So this can flash in and block our Hope of Ghirapur if they want to. It's going to be very hard for us to activate our bits and pieces here. So we're going to activate... So I kind of want to activate Ingenious Smith in case we find another Ancient Den. I think we're going to do this. The other option is to put one of these in if they lightning bolt our guy. But I think getting the card advantage when we can find a land when we're in a situation where we don't really have mana is good. Okay, so we'll get this Lotus Petal. So this will pump both of our guys. So we have a lightning bolt, they're going to spend it on the construct now. I'm pretty happy trading this for a 3-1, I think. So I think we'll attack with all creatures. Because they are the aggro deck here. We have the inevitability because we've got all these little guys. Sure, so they're just putting that guy in. So this can only block creatures with flying. So it's going to block our Hope of Ghirapur here and trade. Sure. Then we can jam a Canonist down their throat, make our guys bigger. We can just sort of keep doing all the things. So we can attack for 7 next turn. Now, Murktide Regent is going to be an issue, but that's not a Murktide Regent. So we say no to this. Drop turn. A Painter's Servant. Interesting. Do I want to trade my Ingenious Smith with a Dragon's Rage Channeler? That is an interesting question. That is a very interesting question. Let's activate this. Let's see what our opponent does in response to our activation. So we're going to put in... interesting. We're going to put in the Painter's Servant here, I think. Because this might make them think about some other things. Now, the Canonist can stop them doing multiple cantrips, but they haven't really been doing that. So I think we're going to attack with both of these. We're going to trade. Sure. So they're throwing all of their guys under the bus and taking damage in the process. We could have waited 1 more turn, but I think reducing our opponent's life total here is going to be important. So we have lethal damage on board. They're probably putting the Expressive Iteration on top, sure. So this is going to be a tight one, I think. Can't need our opponent to keep bricking. Like a Murktide Regent here is going to be annoying for us, but they can't attack with it, but they can sit behind it accruing resources. We can... Okay, a Lightning Bolt. So they're going to Lightning Bolt our Painter here, I think. Which is why we played it out. Sure. Because we're not actually trying to combo right now, because we need 3 mana to do that. And a Grindstone in play. So we're a long way off that being a thing that we can do. Okay. Have we got a Lightning Bolt for our construct? Feels like they might do, unless they're pondering here. Oh, that's bad for them. So they played their land this turn, so I think they're dead. All we have to do is put an artifact creature into play, of which we have several. No, I guess I could have misclicked on the Aether Vial. We found a land, so we will... I'm just trying to think what they could have for 0 mana. I think we'll play this guy out now. And then we can tap the Aether Vial and put the Canonist in if they cast a spell in response. What am I doing? We completely messed that turn up, didn't we? I got 2 ahead of myself and now I've messed that turn up and given our opponent a shot. We should have just tapped the Aether Vial instead of playing into the days and spending our Lotus Petal for it. Very stupid and foolish. We deserve to lose this game now. Ugh. So they can only cantrip once next turn. They can only play 1 creature next turn. So they have to have a lightning bolt and a creature in their hand. I guess they can bolt this and then bolt the other guy. Yeah, we've definitely messed this turn up in a big way. We had the win there and we just punted. Yikes. Okay, a Mystic Sanctuary. What they put on top this time? Expressive Iteration. Okay, which means they must have a way of getting this off the top of their library, I would imagine, or a way of keeping themselves alive until next turn. Sometimes when you're narrating all of your plays, you make mistakes. Okay, so they need a removal spell as well. A Portable Hole. What does that achieve? It makes our guy a 4/4. It does give us a thing that we can Oswald next turn. If we put the Oswald in now. Our opponent's got 2 cards in hand. We know they're drawing Expressive Iteration. I think we just have to attack them here because they're going to have more resources next turn. We're probably going to lose because of our punts, which is most deserved, to be honest. Okay, they didn't have anything. So we didn't get punished for our really bad punt that could have cost us the game and should have cost us the game, to be honest. All right, sideboarding. So Leyline of the Void against Delver is pretty good, as it turns out. Now, in our deck, it can be a little bit awkward because it's black and we can't cast it. We don't want Revoker here. They're probably going to be bringing in some amount of meltdown-y type things. So we're going to have to try and watch those. The portable holes become much worse post-board because of the meltdowns. So probably want to trim one of those. So at the moment, what have we got in there? So we've got 2 plows in. The Ethersworn Canonist is very good. I like it here. The Ingenious Smith is nice. The Crucible is just a really good way of going up the curve and messing with your opponent. I don't think we need Lotus Petals in this matchup. So that gets us 2 plows. We're keeping 1 portable hole for the purposes of Oswald. Now it's a case of can we fit in these ley lines to try and beat the Delver player? I don't know if we can. Like, what are we going to fit in here? So in old builds, I used to run Rest in Peace, which I would have as like a 2 of. And that's a lot easier to fit in than 4 because obviously you can cast it, whereas I don't really want these cards in my opening hand. I think we're just going to run it like this and rely on our single Soul Guide Lantern to do some work. Now we're going to have to be playing against Meltdown this game. All right, so we have the turn 1 Aether Vial or the turn 1 Esper Sentinel. Both of these are pretty good. And we have a removal spell for their Murktide Regent. Hopefully, we won't have to use the Swords to Plowshares on another guy. Okay, so what are our options here? I think we play out our planes. And so if we play out the Esper Sentinel here and they daze it, that's not the end of the world for us. I think we'll play out the Vial though. They daze it, we're still ahead on mana. Sure, that's fine. No, we can't pay. So next turn we can play around dazes. And they probably don't have Force of Wills in their deck. I don't think they should have Force of Wills in their deck post-board games. So what have we got here? So I think we want to play out Urza Saga and get that running for next turn. Then we'll play out Mother of Runes. If they don't have a Lightning Bolt now, then they're going to be in trouble. And then we're going to play this Mox out now because we can play it around a daze now. And then we pass a turn. So Meltdown is something we're going to have to play through, which is another reason why the Mother of Runes is better. Sure. So we just got the removal spell out. Alright, so our opponent's turn. Wasteland would be annoying, but not wholly unexpected. Like, we kind of have to thread Wastelands and Meltdowns with our Aether Sagas, which is not the easiest thing to do. Okay, so no Meltdown. Sorry, no Wasteland. To us, play our Wasteland, and we will pass a turn. Is our opponent going to do anything with their second turn? Oh, sorry, their third turn. No. And they're a little ways off of Murktide here. So we'll activate this. Another plow. So we're just going to make a guy here. Lightning bolting that guy in particular. So I'm going to get a Soul Guide Lantern right now. Because they're getting close to Mystic Sanctuary mana as well. And we don't have the win in our hand. We can Fiddlebender for it as well. Okay, double Lightning Bolt on our construct. So we've got so much card advantage off of this as a Saga. And it's shown our opponent has shown us that they do not have a Meltdown. That's what this means to me. So I think we'll probably take the Unholy Heat, I guess. I was hoping that we could keep an artifact in place so we can use our Mox Opal. Alas, that is not to be. But we could stop our opponent getting a Murktide. They'll need more cards in their library for that right now. And we do have double plows. So we can kind of play it by ear if we need to. So they can play a Murktide right now, but we have 2 plows to work with. So I think that's fine. Sure. Murktide, 3 cards in hand. I would very much like to draw like an Ancient Den or something this turn. Another plow. So we have plays here. We can do the greedy play, which is trying to plow and then trying to play the Esper Sentinel and then plowing using our Mox Opal mana. That is quite greedy. But our opponent can't daze this and they can't bolt it. So I think this is fine. Sure. So we're still playing around daze here. So we get a draw a card off the Sentinel as well. And then we will... This is going to be another daze here. So we got 1 land in hand. Sure. They got another one? Sure. Okay. So we're in a reasonable spot now. Our opponent has expended so many resources this game, and they've now set themselves back to Stone Age with a double daze turn. So they've got... Okay, they've got Channeler. That's fine. We've got an Oswald. Got a Wasteland that we can use, but we know our opponent's got things for it. So I think we're on Oswald, Sentinel, hold up, plow. Also, if they did have like a force, they can't have force because they got a land actually, yeah. So do you want to trade your Channeler for our Sentinel? I doubt it. Oh, they do. Wow, that is bizarre to me. We have one anyway. Sure. So those are the lands we knew about. Unchained Berserker. Sure, that's a really bad threat. Alright. Just Fiddlebender our way out of this game now. So what are we going to do here? I think we play out land. This can become... Guy, so... Probably Weldering this into Painter this turn. So we probably want to tap it itself. Sacrifice it. Sorry, running this into Grindstone this turn. And we can hold up the plow. Our clock is definitely better than what they've got going on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they put another card in their graveyard. We can pop the Soul Guide Lantern if we want to. We still have the Esper Sentinel that we can pitch to Oswald next turn. So this comes in for 3 because it gets pumped when it attacks. But our life total is so high right now. A Delver of Secrets, we don't care about that. We can always plow it when the time comes. Ingenious Smith. Do we care about Ingenious Smith right now? We're just going to get a Painted Servant, I think. It has protection from everything, which is probably not the smartest. If they have a removal spell, they have to use it now, and they have to draw... Okay, they don't have a removal spell. Excellent. I was going to say, if they have a removal spell now, they have to use it on our Painter, and then we just get to do the same thing next turn by pitching the Soul Guide Lantern. Anything weird in our opponent's deck? It's interesting. I don't think the Delver's flipping, at least. Alright. We are now 2-0. So we punted game 1, but got lucky. And then game 2, we just kind of crushed them. I don't think their hand was... Like, their hand was okay, I guess. They had a bunch of removal, but they wasted so much on our Saga that I don't think they needed to do. They were kind of doing it so they could power out of Murktide, I think, but it just didn't feel like a good play to me that they were wasting that many resources on that. Let's just have a quick look in there. Graveyard, I can't actually see... Oh, okay, they got 1, 2... They got 2 Brotherhood's End. So I think they're just better off just trying to dig to that sort of stuff and maybe taking a few hits from the Saga tokens, especially if they were expecting to get a Murktide into play. So, alright, so we are 2-0 against the 2 best decks in the format. Not a bad start. Let's roll on to round 3. Alright, we're on the play here. We have a pretty serviceable Urza Saga game here, but we can start playing from turn 2 if we want to. I think we probably just play out the Ancient Den Mother of Runes first, or the Caracas Mother of Runes. It's probably best. So we will keep this hand, I think. If we had a Painter in our hand, then we play out the Saga on one, but we don't. So we're just going to go Caracas, because that's the more common thing you'd expect to see here. From us, then we'll play out this Mother of Runes. In case our opponent's playing some sort of Thalia deck. So in case our opponent's playing a Thalia deck, we want to get this down first. I don't think we want to pop it to put the Hope of Ghirapur into play. If we get really hurt with Wastelands, it'd be nice to have a white source that we can draw on later. Let's see what our opponent's playing. Once upon a time, so this is either Elves or the Naya Initiative builds. They call it Naya Initiative. It's basically just white with like a handful of red cards and then Once Upon a Time. Those are my most expected things this deck to be, but it could be some other stuff, but we'll find out very soon. City of Traitors. Okay, so we're looking at... I have no idea what we're looking at. The Ozolith. If you're not familiar with this card, it does silly things with counters. Alright, I don't know what my opponent's doing, but I like it. Okay, so I have an Esper Sentinel this turn. So we want to get our Urza Saga ticking. We have a choice between Esper Sentinel to try and draw some cards or Ethersworn Canonist to try and slow down what our opponent's doing. Now, it looks like they're probably going to be running some sort of creature deck. So I think maybe this guy that stops them playing more than one creature a turn might be useful. And we're going to hold up our Mother of Runes because the 1 damage probably isn't going to matter too much. And I'd rather keep my guys alive in the face of a removal colour like white. Alright, so we're playing the Urza Saga plan. Interesting. Hangerback Walker, sure. Mother of Runes may not be getting the most amount of work done here. So we have a choice here. We can burn our Lotus Petal here for the Saga. But then we won't get the other half of the Saga. Or we can Wasteland our opponent's Saga. I think we're supposed to play out the Ancient Den and funnel some mana into Saga. I think we attack into this Hangerback Walker. And then we can decide if we want a Hope of Ghirapur or an Esper Sentinel here. They both kind of do stuff. But are they better than having a Lotus Petal in play? I don't think so. If we draw a Painter next turn, we want to be able to have 5 mana, so I don't really want to pop my Lotus Petal now. If we can draw a Painter next turn, we can win the game. And we get to see our draw before the Urza Saga pops because of how the Saga mechanic works. So there's a City of Traitors we knew about. Sure. Patchwork Automaton. Cool. Like tribal constructs, maybe? I don't know what my opponent's doing, but it's cool. This Canonist not doing any work today. That's for sure. Okay, so end of turn. We'll make a large gentleman. And then it's our turn. Opponent 7 off the top. A Grindstone off the top. That's not the one we wanted. Suppose we'll make a guy. What do we want here? If we get the Mox, we can use that to equip the Shadowspear to our guy. And then we can Wasteland their Saga so they don't get to tutor for something. Because I can't imagine whatever they tutor for is going to be particularly great for us. And then so we need to get the Shadowspear if we want to do that, but we can't. It's choices. Do we either get the Shadowspear or we Wasteland our opponent? I guess we can do both, but we don't really get any value out of the Shadowspear this turn. Interesting. Interesting. Or we can get the Mox and deploy another creature. Then we get the Shadowspear. It looks like it's going to be a creature-based matchup. I think we have to Wasteland our opponents as a Saga because I don't really know what they're doing over there. I don't want them to tutor for something. So this guy can come in. I have to imagine something is going to go under the bus soon. They can probably take this hit, but next turn, with a Shadowspear on board, they might take the chance of soaking up 6 damage now while they can. Okay. Now, our opponent could be a combo deck. They could be just an aggro deck. I literally have no idea, which is nice to see, to be honest. I think we're going to be wanting some plows here, and this is a dies trigger. This is whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield. Okay, so this isn't a dies trigger. So the little 1/2 white guy that we've got on our sideboard won't affect the Ozolith, but will affect Hangerback Walker. That's interesting. Arcbound Ravager. Sure. It will affect Modular though, because Modular is a dies trigger. Whenever this creature, when it dies. Okay, so we're going to want our Hushbringers, which are going to be pretty much a straight swap for Canonist, I'd imagine. Our opponent doesn't have a lot of life, and they've just played an Ancient Tomb, and they have a Horizon Canopy. Oh god, I'm going to have to read this, aren't I? Modular 1, if a modular ability, if a modular triggered ability would put one or more +1/+1 on counter creature you control, that many +1, destroys artifact you control, or it gains flying. Okay. There's some text on that card, that's for sure. So when they sacrifice guys with modular, they get more counters. So they can probably make a lot of Hangerback Walker tokens. So they can pay 1 to put counter on this, and they can sack this. Let's put some counters on here. So then they have 1, 2, 3. Okay. So they've got another Ravager. Okay. They're doing cool stuff, that's for sure. Is it just going to beat boring old Urza Saga tokens? I'm obviously hoping not, but Painted Servant wins us the game, weirdly, because we can give our guy protection from their guys. Okay, so this Ozolith is going to be doing some work here, right? Because they just get to double the counters, right? Put those counters. So they're not going onto both things, right? Because it's the counters that were on it. And if the counters are going... Oh, wait, no, because this is put that many counters on modular, right? You may put... No, you put its counters on, so that shouldn't double stack them, right? If I'm correct. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff happening here. And we're just going to have to deal with it, really. Okay. Interesting they're going big on the Ravager rather than trying to make the Hex, the other guy bigger. The Walker guy. Okay, so we've got 8 counters here. That's quite a lot, truth be told. That's certainly bigger than the guys that we've got going on here. However, if we can draw a Painted Servant one time, then we can win the game. With the power of Mother of Runes. Come on, Mother of Runes. Hook me up. Yeah, Mother of Runes, Painted Servant. Ah, we didn't get there. We drew a really bad card. So this is 12. So that's certainly bigger than the other things that we're doing, isn't it? So I think we are paying 1 for this guy. It's going to be very hard for us to get through stuff now. If we put the Shadowspear onto a construct, what is that going to achieve for us? We can gain 8 life. That's not really going to work. How big is the Thopter token going to be? I don't know. So I think we want to play the Caracas here, sadly. Because we want to be able to bounce our Hope of Ghirapur if we need to. And maybe we're just playing out an Esper Sentinel here. I don't think we have any good attacks. Yeah, we really just need to draw Painted Servant sometime soon. Our opponents have got 1 card in hand. They can't use Sylvan Library and they can't really cast spells because both of their lands cause them some amount of difficulty here. And if they can't make any more creatures, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so they've got 1 creature more. They've got the same number of creatures as us, right? So we need 1 more creature. But obviously our creatures aren't big enough. But it means if they tap Horizon Canopy, they'll die if they're not deploying a creature, but their deck's full of creatures, etc., etc. So, interesting spot here. We could just be staring at each other for a little bit whilst they look for some lands to cast some mana, to cast some spells with, and while we're looking for Painter. Okay, so they've got another Zabaz. How does this impact things here? So if we... So this can eat some artifacts and then dump them on this, right? This doesn't have modular though. And this is at the beginning of combat on your turn. So I don't think they can dump everything onto us. So I think we can just take this 2 damage. I don't think it's going to get bigger. I don't think they can instant speed make these guys like one-shots. So we will bounce the Zabaz because it's a legend. And now our opponent does not have enough creatures to block with, right? That's the beginning of combat on your turn. Okay, so they sacrifice that one. Okay, Painted Servant would make things easy for us. But why make things easy when you can make things really hard? So our opponent's got 1, 2, 3, 4 blockers. We have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attackers. And our opponent is on 1. What am I missing is the next question. So I think we equip this to one of the big lads, I guess. And we attack with everything. Our opponent's on 1. Okay, okay, we did have it. Okay. Well, our opponent's deck is cool as hell. So what these Hushbringers, these plows are probably fine. They are a creature deck. So, what is going to be bad here? The Canonist is going to be blanco. The Revoker is going to be nice here. The Esper Sentinel, probably not so good here. That leaves us with one more cut. I think we can probably trim Soulguide Lantern. Haven't really seen any graveyard stuff apart from Dice triggers, which this doesn't stop. We could board in Leyline in the Void. So Leyline in the Void will stop Dice triggers, which is it includes modular. Is this worth bringing in? Like, the Hushbringer is already doing that. Do we want to go deeper into the well? These Mother of Runes do not look good. That is for sure. So I think a Leyline is probably better than a Mother of Runes, but maybe we could cut like 1 petal for another Leyline. Let's try this. I'm not super convinced, but... Okay, so this is turn 2 Ingenious Smith, and then we play an Urza Saga game. We have Wastelands, which look like they were going to be pretty good against our opponent, so I think we can probably keep this. We treat the Wastelands as spells, so basically got a decent chunk of interaction with our opponent there. A Savannah. Okay, if they're going to make a land and then not make a play, you can be damn sure I'm going to Wasteland them. Sure, we're going to Wasteland them again. Haywire Might, sure. So this can blow up Urza Sagas. It's important to note. But we can blow up Urza Sagas too. This can also blow up our Ancient Den. Ravager, sure. So we're a little bit behind now. We might have got baited in to use those Wastelands a little bit. I think we play out the Caracas in case they play that weird little wasp thing. Next time we play out the Saga and Smith. But the insect is going to make that a real problem if they keep their Lotus Petal to use it with. I suspect they're just going to deal us some damage and not try and sack anything else. Got another Ravager. Walking Ballista, sure. That's fine. We're probably going to lose our Ingenious Smith. But we really need to find some action now because we have drawn only lands. Next turn we can Eiganjo as well. And it'll be a bit of a hidden trick because we'll have the Saga in play. Swing and a miss. You hate to see it. Okay, I feel we're going to lose this game. We are behind. And we have only drawn mana sources, really. We did get the Smith, to be fair. Kind of hoping to get more than one non-land. Right, so next turn, if we want to Eiganjo, who do we want to aim at? I guess it depends how many artifacts they have in play, right? Because the Ravager can certainly mess around with that. Okay, so they're playing Esper Sentinel. Pithing Needle. This is probably going to name Urza Saga. Could name Grindstone, but Urza Saga seems the safe one because that's the resource that he can see that I'm working with. I think we don't have to trade here because our opponent will have to lose their Walking Ballista. I'd rather trade with a Walking Ballista than a Haywire Might. Especially when our opponent doesn't have green mana. Come on, deck, give us something tasty here. That's not very tasty, is it? So I guess we're playing this out because we don't want to play something that can get wastelanded. We could have played the Ancient Den to pump our thingy, but we don't want to get hit by the Haywire Might because we need to be able to make sure that we can Eiganjo in combat. Patchwork Automaton. That's a pretty good one. Opponent's taking a lot of damage here. So I think this turn we go to blocks and see what our opponent does. And then we'll do this still in combat. So they can sack a load of their board to keep this alive. But we're going to be getting something out of it. Okay, they're just letting it die and putting the modular guy on the Walking Ballista. Okay, that means they can't sort of do double up like they did in the last game. Our opponent's deck is really sweet. Yikes. What are we doing with this Urza Saga? I think the only way we realistically win this game is with a Grindstone. So I'm going to put the Grindstone into play. And then I'm going to put a basic Plains into play. And I'm going to pass a turn. Tree of Tails, sure. A Mox Opal. Play this out. And we'll pay. Because we have literally nothing else going on. Now, they don't have a lot of coloured spells in their deck. So the manual Grindstone is a bit of a big ask. How much we're taking here? Okay, I don't have anything else just yet. So we've given ourselves the ability to win with a Painter's Servant next turn. Do we grind our opponent anyway to see more of their deck? I think we do. I would like to see more of the cards in our opponent's deck, please. Okay. This is it. This is do or die turn. Oh my god. He's so lucky. So we're going to play this one out. Put the painter into play. We're going to name red. I think we have to grindstone our opponent now before they draw more cards. I can remove a spell here, but it's going to have to be something pretty good in these colours. Could be Force of Vigor, but I don't know if they've got the coloured pips to play it. Alright, we're just having a little chat with our opponent there. We ground them out. Opponent was a lovely human being. They're going to get in touch with me and give me the list that they were playing, because I think I quite like the look of it and I might give it a whirl. So yeah, we are 3-0 now. We got lucky in that game to draw the painter, but we did brick for so many turns. We needed to hit something, and we kind of cashed in our bad luck by drawing the one card that actually saved us right there. So not too shabby. All right, let's go into the 4th round, I think it is. We're on the play for round 4. We're a little bit cold to Wasteland here, but we have a Mother of Runes to protect our Oswald, who can then go and find our painter with the Hope of Ghirapur. We just need a little bit more mana. I think this is a keep from me. Right, so we will begin the game with the Mother of Runes. Okay, our opponent didn't have any players on our turn, which makes me think that they might be on something like initiative, which generally is just about deploying things on the first turn or two and then worries about removing your opponent's things. So happy to F6. Okay, a polluted delta. We might be getting comboed here. A bad land. So this is looking like Reanimator now. Dark Ritual. Sure. Entomb. Sure. Probably going badly for us right now. Exhume. So they've got a Grizzlebrand. They're going to draw some cards. Probably going to draw some more cards. Sure. If they put something like an Archon of Cruelty into play, or start attacking our hand, I think we can probably just concede and go to game 2. So this is the 3rd most popular deck in the format right now. So we're playing against the big 3 so far in this league. So it's certainly having to work for our wins. Now, white cards means they're probably not going to expect to see Leyline. I think we're just going to concede here. Sure. So, we want these ley lines and we want this cage. That's a given. The Revoker can hit Lotus Petals, so I don't mind having that in. Our own Lotus Petals can certainly accelerate us. We're certainly not going to need an Aether Vial this game. The Canonists can slow our opponent down if we get one out early enough. The Mother of Runes is unlikely to do any work here. The Portable Hole, we can have 1 to 2 to 4 if we're going to get an Oswald, then we can hit an Animate Dead. Now, there is an option to board in these Swords to Plowshares and these Deafening Silence. Now, the reason for these would be, first of all, that Crucible of Worlds is bad, so we can nip that in the bud straight away. But also, we can stop their graveyard, but if they show and tell something into play, we don't really have any hand disruption, so we need to be able to deal with a creature that hits play. So if we want these 6 cards, these 5, we're going to need to cut some more stuff here. So, what do I want to cut? I'm not sure we're going to be looking at Mox Opal as a thing that we get later on. Hope of Ghirapur can buy us turns. Shadowspear, if we need Shadowspear, then I think things have already gone wrong for us. I think maybe there's a portable hole. Like, it can hit a few other little bits and pieces too. Maybe we're cutting a hole. A Fiddlebender. I think we still want the Smiths. Maybe we do want the Fiddlebenders just to lock things out. Maybe the Smiths are a little slow though. They can find us our combo pieces. Maybe they're better than Sentinels though. Sure, we'll try like this. Now this matchup is not going to be great for us. Like game 3, we're going to have to mulligan to Leyline in the Void. But we do have other graveyard hate pieces. Notably, Grafdigger's Cage doesn't stop things coming in from their hands, so it won't stop show and tell. It's from graveyards and libraries. A perfectly serviceable hand against other decks. We cannot keep it against Reanimator though. Is turn 3... they're keeping 7 cards. I don't think we can keep this hand in that case. I think we have to mulligan to a piece of graveyard hate. I think we're just mulliganing to graveyard hate right now. Alright. So we're going to keep 4 cards here. So, don't want the Grindstone. I guess we can get rid of 1 Wasteland. And maybe the Plow and try and use Ingenious Smith to find something. Yikes. Alright. This is our hand. What do we got? 2 pieces of graveyard hate. Which one of them is better? Probably the cage, or the lantern does cantrip if we get in a bit of a spot. Sure, I'm going to take the lantern. So we don't want to play this out while they have a ley line. Whilst we have ley line, because our opponent could play the Serenity. But we can always play it out if we get second mana, because then we can use it to draw a card in response, which isn't ideal, but they're not going to blow this up until the turn that they can... Their Serenity's going to go off the turn they kill us, basically. So the Soul Guide Lantern's not going to have much of a chance to interact there. I suspect we're losing this one, and our little streak's going to come to an end. But let's see. Exile Zone, because that's effectively their graveyard, so we can keep track of what they've drawn and played. So our opponent's played nothing there. Interesting. So we have a choice here. We can play out this Soul Guide Lantern to pump our Ingenious Smith, or we can Wasteland their Badlands. If we Wasteland their Badlands, it might keep them off of Serenity. But then we are kind of not doing anything, and we're trying to get there with a 1/1. But if we draw any mana source, we can then deploy the Lantern next turn. Tricky. I think we'll cast this just to increase our clock speed, so we can beat for 2. So this basically doubles the speed of our clock. Now, the way we get punished is if our opponent goes Lotus Petal, blue land, show and tell. But what are the chances that we can beat that if we just have an Ingenious Smith who's a 1/1 and no other permanents that really matter? So they could cast the Serenity here, which would be annoying. Have to imagine that's what's coming. Sure, Serenity. Guess we're going to attacks. So we're going to lose our ley line. So we have a choice here of whether or not we Wasteland them or we draw a card off Soul Guide Lantern. I think we need to draw a card off Soul Guide Lantern. Okay, so we hit a land here. We can't really play the Esper Sentinel because it's going to get caught by the Serenity. So we have to hope that our opponent doesn't have it this turn, but they almost certainly do. That's the reason we crack our Soul Guide Lantern there, is because our opponent is going to make a massive creature this turn. So playing out the Soul Guide Lantern the turn after they make a massive guy is pointless. So I think it was the correct play to get the life on it. Whether or not we should have Wastelanded them remains to be seen. If they play a land this turn, then I think we're okay not Wastelanding there. But if they miss on land this turn, then maybe that's different. So this is going to blow up some things. Yeah, it's goodbye ley line. Sure, so they had a land, so I don't think the Wasteland line would have really made a difference. At least this way we could draw a land and maybe Ingenious Smith into our Grafdigger's Cage if we get a turn. I suspect we won't get any more turns because our opponent is going to amount so many terrifying things. Thoughtseize. Okay. Are they not just making guys? They're going to take the Ingenious Smith here because that can dig to more graveyard hate. I have to imagine they are making a guy, they're just clearing the way first. Now I've taken a little bit of damage here. So the Grizzlebrand can only draw them 7 cards. If they're reanimating though, they can't draw any cards with the Grizzlebrands. That gives us a turn to plough it perhaps. Now we have to draw a plough. Faith is looting? Sure. So I have to imagine they're putting something in their bin here. Something good. Oh wow. Can't believe our opponent bricked that hard. Oh, maybe we should have kept the Soul Guide Lantern in hand. Pressed the wrong button, so we're going to miss a damage here. So we have one play available to us here. So they're entombing for Iona. Missing that 1 point damage is pretty annoying, but that's a 9 thing. So they can't have reanimate in hand as their way of reanimating. So what we can do is we can take out their 2 non-basics and hope they don't have another land to reanimate their Iona. Like to exhume it or whatever it is they're going to do to it. Now if they do like land exhume it, we might be able to get there with our 3 creatures. Now that 1 point damage we missed might come back to bite us though. Been a weird game this. Snuff out on our Ingenious Smith. So we're going to get to draw a card. We're not going to get to draw a card. They brought in snuff outs as well. Interesting. We didn't get to draw a card off them. But so basically they need 1 mana to reanimate their big scary guy. And it's either animate dead or exhume. Esper Sentinel. So I suspect they're probably not going to pay here. Sure, a Canonist. That's not really going to do anything. Exhume. So again, Ingenious Smith. They're going to name white, which is going to be a little bit awkward for us. But our win conditions are colourless as well. So this can't attack yet either. We really need to hit a land that turn. Sure. Alright, so our opponent's turn now. We're kind of at a stalemate. But if I draw a land, then I think we might be able to win. That one damage I missed might end up costing us this whole game. So we've got Plough that we can't cast. Sure. If our opponent draws a land, they've got 4 cards in hand, so they might be able to deploy something. One of these weird games. Alright, come on land. Oh, Jesus. Sure, pass the turn. Unmask. Are we going to get to draw a card here? No. So they're going to take one of our Painter's Servants, because they're the only spells we can cast. Sure. A land. We have a land. I think we'll play this guy out. We're definitely not naming white, that's for sure. And then green, because we won't be able to play any spells there. So we could have sandbagged the Painter for another turn, but they're going to have more hand disruption than anything else. We're going to need some more colourless guys. So the Hopes of Ghirapur would be nice draws here. Another Plains. It's not the worst. So we can attack and put them to 2. So if we'd have got that 1 point of damage in that we missed earlier because I pressed the wrong yield button, then we could kill our opponent this turn. Because we could have attacked. Yeah, we could attack to put them to 2 and then attack with 2 1/1s. Or 1 power guys. A Grindstone. Okay. We've got a different win condition in play now. Alright, so we managed to cheese a win there. So the Soulguide Lantern play might look a bit awkward in retrospect, but the reason we did that is because we were so low on resources, and a Reanimator player shouldn't be playing out the Serenity unless they can go off the next turn, especially when I'm not representing much of a clock. It just seemed like a really strange play to me, but it very, very nearly worked. We got lucky at the end there, basically. So unlucky with our mulligan, but lucky at the end there. All right. Now we have to do this on the draw. Awkward, for sure. I don't know if Deafening Silence is going to be that useful on the draw. I think maybe just having a couple of Mother of Ruins in case we need to force through the final bits of damage, if we can slow them down, might be better than the Deafening Silences. Especially since some of their discard is creature as well. So, alright, we're going to give this a go. I'm expecting to lose this game, truth be told. We can't keep this, it doesn't have a leyline. We basically have to mulligan to leyline, otherwise they turn on us. This has 2 pieces of graveyard hate. If our opponent goes to 5, we can keep this. Okay, they've gone to 5. I think we have to keep this. And we can bin off probably an Ancient Den here. Actually, no, we can bin off a Plains, so we've only bin off 1 card. So our opponent has gone down to 5. They're probably looking for an answer more than they are looking for a turn 1 hand here. Because I gave a pretty snappish, pretty snap quick mulligan on my side, which shows that I'm looking for something specific, generally speaking. So I think, like, this hand can get there, but if our opponent mulligans to a point where they just have a turn 1, they might just go, well, let's hope this is good enough to beat a leyline. Let's hope this is good enough. If not, we can try and draw and beat the leyline later on. So we've kind of showing them the leyline game 2 has made it so this situation is slightly in our favour. I don't mean in terms of the matchup, but in terms of the decision our opponent's having to make. So they've kept on 5. Let's see what they've got. No leyline from us. Let's see if they mulligan to hate to beat the leyline or not. So if they Thoughtseize us, we're covered still. But if they just try and go off his turn, we lose. So if they have a Dark Ritual now, we're probably dead. Unmask. Targeting themselves. Okay. Alright, so they're getting an Archon of Cruelty this turn. Not ideal for us. So we can draw a Plough. Okay, so we can draw a Plough and get back in this game. Come on. It's not a Plough. I think play this out because this can at least draw us a card into a Plough, perhaps. Does it matter which one of these we get rid of? Probably not. We'll get rid of this. So, yeah, our opponent mulliganed to 5 and had a turn 1 Archon of Cruelty. A bit awkward. Took their whole hand to do it, basically. But now we're in a bit of a bind because this kills us in 2 turns because it's quite the Magic the Gathering card. This. Like this Painted Servant isn't winning us the game anytime soon, but it might be useful later. I think we can get rid of the Graph Digger's Cage here. As weird as that sounds. Like, we're basically... Our opponent said, can you beat turn 1 Archon of Cruelty? And for a lot of people, the answer is going to be no. We have 1 draw step to find it. So I think we play out Plains here. We're going to draw a card. Hope of Ghirapur. This doesn't do it because we have to sacrifice the creature when it attacks. So this is just going to hit us for 6 and the trigger, which deals 3 damage. So we are dead. Sure. So if we'd have mulliganed to Leyline that game, we would have won. So we kind of played the mind games with our opponent a little bit there. But our opponent went to 5 and we had a Thoughtseize Proof Graveyard Disruption. And normally, if they're quite low on resources, it's difficult for them to make the turn 1 guy. It's normally a turn 2 guy. And they saw the Leyline, so I would have expected them to mull into Hate. So I'm not entirely sure, like with the first game we saw where they played the second game where they played the Serenity out without having anything to do with the turn it popped, as well as not mulligan to Leyline Hate. I'm not sure how familiar with the matchups and the deck the opponent is. Like they beat me though, so fair enough to them. But I think the majority of like dedicated reanimated pilots there would probably, I guess they might have mulliganed to quite low, and they were like, well, this hand is a turn 1 or nothing. If they have Leyline, maybe that's good enough. I don't know. But yeah, they beat us. This matchup, I don't think is very good for the painted deck. We're very much all in on Leyline, which a competent reanimator player should be beating most of the time. We'd have to assemble a quick clock and have the Leyline, but that's not something we had there. All right, the Trophy Dream is dead, but we still got another round, so let's keep jamming. All right, so we're into the final round. We're on the play. Our hand makes a turn 3 combo, but we also have a backup painter, so sign me up, I guess. And our backup painter also can come through a vial, so it's a pretty solid hand. Wasteland is going to be a bit of a pain for us, truth be told. But they might not have it, so there is that. I don't think you can throw a hand like this back. Force of Will pitching Murktide. Sure. Okay, it looks like another Delver matchup, which is what we want to see, really. This deck's relatively tuned for Delver. I'm much more confident in the Delver matchup than I am the Initiative matchup, personally. Oh, Rug Delver. Okay, that's a little bit different because they have access to potentially things like Force of Vigor and Collector Roof. They shuffle their library off the Ponder, which is good for us. Just make the lad. They can daze this, or they can leave it and then try and line and bolt it. So we're going to name black, I think, or white. No, we name white, and then our opponent might think we've got Solitude in hand. It gives them something to think about, and I have to imagine by the cards we've seen so far that our opponent is on Rug Delver or the Rug Dreadnought deck. I guess they could be Hot Bant, actually. Oh, okay. An Underground Sea. Now I'm a little bit less knowing what's going on. Okay, a Fatal Push. Sure, so this is like a control deck, perhaps. A Ponder. You've got Murktide. So this is like Bug Delver? Bit of a blast from the past. Choosing not to play Expressive Iteration. Chooses not to shuffle the library. That's less good for us. I'm not a fan of that, truth be told. So we're going to add some mana off of this. I'm going to go hunting for a card here. We are getting the Grindstone here. And I'm going to play out our Caracas. And I think we want to play out Oswald and Mother of Runes. Do I think our opponent's got another removal spell is the question. Let's try the painter. And white again. Oh, we could name black for Snuff Out, actually. That might have been a slightly more optimal play. I don't think our opponent's going to have grief and things. Okay, so they're dazing here. Sure. So we're going to need a mana before we can activate our Grindstone. But we've kind of posed the question to our opponent, do you have it? If they don't, we can win the game. If they do, then we can try and fiddle bend our way back into the game. Our opponent doesn't have a lot on the board right now. So we've certainly got the time, I think. That's not a land, unfortunately. Interesting. I think we are attacking here. I can't think of anything that they can flash in other than Snapcaster Mage. On the amount of mana they have. I think we'll play out the Oswald. They could have another Daze, but if they want to set themselves back mana again, that's probably not the worst for us. But if this guy resolves, it gives us a really neat backup plan. If we'd have had a land there, I think maybe we could have got away with it there, because I think you still end of turn kill the painter, if that's a thing that you want to do. So this is like a Murktide. Sure. So you have an 8/8 Murktide. It's a relatively quick clock. They have 3 cards in hand. They didn't have a removal spell last turn, so I don't think they have a removal spell this turn. Could be mistaken though. I think we have to grind now. They didn't have the removal spell last turn. Alright. Stifle. I see. So it wasn't a removal spell, it was a stifle. So on the next turn we can do the same again if they don't have a removal spell. Now if their hands are just full of stifles, then yeah, this could be a hard one. Because they kill us in 3 turns with the Murktide. They won't have any reach in Bug. Sinkhole. Wow, okay, our opponent's playing Magic from like 10 years ago. That's pretty cool. Another Painter's Servant. Is there anything we can find? We don't have time to play Painter's Servant and then turn this into Crucible of Worlds. But we could get Crucible of Worlds now off of this Painter. But then if our opponent has a Stifle, we're in real trouble. Hard this one. Like, it definitely feels like our opponent has a Stifle here. So we can Shadowspear, or we can Portable Hole. I think we cast a Portable Hole here. Let's see what happens with this. So I think we Oswald away this Portable Hole. Let's see if they stifle it. Okay. So we have some choices here. We can get a second Painters, or we can get a Canonist to try and stop our opponent from being able to cast multiple things. I think a second Painters is probably the best. And this one lays black for the purpose of Snuff Out, I think. If we had a 0-drop, we could turn it into a Hope of Ghirapur. But if we had a 0-drop, it would probably be mana, so that'd be good for us. So we're trying to draw a land to beat our opponent's Stifle next turn. It does feel like our opponent has Stifle, though. They're playing full-on Sinkhole as well. So there's another Sinkhole. I think another Sinkhole kills us here, right? It's not looking great. So this guy's going to bap us for 8. This feels much worse than a regular Delver for us to play against. Okay, so what is our plan here? Hope of Ghirapur. So we can turn this guy into a Crucible. We don't really want to show our opponent Crucible. We don't have Ensnaring Bridge in our deck, so we can't go and get Ensnaring Bridge, which would be very good in this situation. No, I think our opponent's got us here. Sure. Interesting. Okay, so our opponent is trying to blow up our lands, which is a little bit mean. I would like to Swords to Plowshares their creatures. This is a matchup where they could possibly have Planeswalkers like Grist and Liliana of the Veil if they're trying to bleed our resources out. So I like keeping Phyrexian Revoker in for that reason. The Aether Vial is going to be pretty decent. I don't know if this is a Lotus Petal. If they're blowing up our lands, maybe having more mana sources is a good place to be. Canonist seems okay. Esper Sentinel, Mother of Runes seems essential. The Portable Hole, I don't know how many targets we're going to have for that. So we can definitely board one of those out. I think the Crucible is going to be a bit essential if our opponent's trying to blow up all of our lands. We can probably trim on the Grindstone because we've got loads of ways of finding it. I don't know if I want to trim on Oswald, really. We kind of need our things that get us specific things and card advantage. So maybe we are getting rid of the petals just because they're card disadvantage. That feels awkward, but maybe that's right. Like Stifles don't really hit our mana base, so we don't have to worry about that. Sure. I can see why they forced the Aether Vial so aggressively. Let's see what we have here. This is not a keepable hand. This is a keepable hand, but it's not great. So we have a choice between keeping the Fiddlebender or the second Painter. Actually, no, I guess we can put the Hope away. That's fine. Let's see if we can get some cards off of our Sentinel. And the next turn we can play out the Fiddlebender, I think. On a naked board, I think the Fiddlebender is much more enticing. So we get a Ponder or a Thoughtseize. Looks like a Thoughtseize. Fatal Push. So we're going to get a card out of this. So it's a 2-for-1 there. Crucible of Worlds. Okay. I'm very happy about seeing this. I'd very much like to cast that later. Okay. The Ingenious Smith is a pretty good one here. Can find us a mana source and its card advantage. Do I want to play into a Daze is the question. I think we have to work through a Daze because we're trying to resolve a Crucible, so we're going to dangle some Daze bait out. Our opponent's definitely going to keep Daze in because they're a land destruction deck. Yeah, there it is. Maybe we could have played out the redundant Painter's Servant, but the upside of getting the Sentinel, the Smith in play is so high here. And we don't know how long we're going to be able to have all our things in play. Okay, so we have a Wasteland here. So we can play the Crucible, or we can try and play one of our guys around days and seeing if we can get some response from it. I think we're going to try this. And we'll attack these two. Okay. It's got Force of Will, pitching Murktide region. That's good for us. We're just trying to clear the way for Crucible. If we can play it around a daze, that would be nice. I think the Crucible will blunt a lot of what our opponent is trying to do to us. Now, they might just Abrupt Decay immediately. Certainly a pain. We'll see. Tarmogoyf? Tarmogoyf, sure. Good old-fashioned Tarmogoyf. 3 cards in our opponent's hand. Mox Opal. Interesting. Our opponent didn't S6 that, so it makes me think our opponent does have something here. Let's dangle out this Oswald. Interesting. 3 cards in our opponent's hand. Now, I do have to worry about the Tarmogoyf just killing us. A Sinkhole on the Caracas. Sure. Our opponent's playing some old-school dirty magic right there. If we had played out the Painter, we might be closer to getting our Mox Opal online. Esper Sentinel. Yeah, we can play out the Painter and then play out the Esper Sentinel here. I think we named black for the purposes of Snuff Out. We cast this. Wait, we only have 2 artifacts here, don't we? That's pretty annoying. Well, this guy's probably not blocking, so I guess we'll get a little bit of damage in there. I think we are on course to lose this game. Maybe the turn that I played out the Smith, I should have played out a Painter. Still feels like our opponent has a daze, though. I'm really getting that vibe from them. Sure, let me take 5 here. If they have a Murktide, then we're probably losing this game. But we're probably losing the game anyway, I think. But that'll certainly make it happen quicker. Another Tarmogoyf, sure. Not ideal. Esper Sentinel we can't cast. Mox Opal we can't tap for mana. Can't. Yikes. Yeah, I think we're just going to get land destruction out of the game here. Brainstorm from our opponent. It's going to be a fatal push on one of our guys, I think. On the Oswald, sure. So we have to chump block this turn or we die. Which means our Crucible line is not going to be out for us. This is an Abrupt Decay. Boseiju. Does that change anything? No, it doesn't. We're just dead here. Sure. Alright. So that last game, we got a little bit jammed. We sort of didn't see that our opponent was going to be a land destruction deck until it was too late. And we just got beaten by the main deck Stifles, really. And then the second game, we could have sequenced slightly different. I think maybe playing the Painter out instead of the Ingenious Smith might have been better. So we were more likely to resolve the Smith. But as we saw from what our opponent had, they just had removal and loads of disruption for what we had going. There was the turn where we could have tried to play the Crucible into a daze. And I kind of backed off of that because our opponent didn't immediately pass priority. But I think I probably should have tried it at least. And that might have been a slightly better line. Like, I'm still not sure we win that game necessarily. Our opponent's got Boseiju and removal spells. So it's going to be difficult. But I think we could have played that last game a little bit differently. Alright, let's talk about the deck. So we went 3-2. Which is... bearing in mind what happened in the last game and that we lost to Reanimator, that's, you know, that's fine, I guess. Like, you can't win them all. Like, Reanimator is a very difficult matchup. Like, they turn 1'd us, and then we sort of like stopped them doing their thing just about because they had a weird Serenity game. And then the third game we could have mulliganed to Leyline, but we kept a double Grafdigger's, turn 1 artifact hate hand against a 5-card hand, expecting them not to be able to deploy a turn 1 guy, so we could get around most of their things, but we couldn't get around the turn 1 that they had, which is unfortunate. It requires a very specific set of cards, really, but maybe we should have mulliganed to Leyline, but if we go to like 3 or 4 cards to find a Leyline, we might end up losing that game anyway because our opponent could just Serenity us because they might have mulliganed into Serenity because they were going pretty deep. So I can't feel upset about that. I think that's just a natural variance of Magic the Gathering, and that's going to happen sometimes. I was happy with how this played against the Initiative. Now, our Initiative player opening hand wasn't, in the first game, felt very weak to me, but we did a pretty good job in the next game, so that was okay. It was a 2-1. It wasn't the most convincing victory. I'm still not sure this is like a great matchup against the Initiative, but I don't think the Initiative is a deck that we're necessarily going to have to worry about for too much longer. I am expecting a ban for Initiative in the near future, to be honest. It's completely shut off huge chunks of the metagame. So like Yorion isn't a deck anymore. when it was like one of the sort of main staples of the format. Uro's kind of disappeared. Like, it's just kind of, there's a difference between shaking things up and just making entire chunks of the metagame like unplayable. I think control is like 5-ish% of the meta right now, which is pretty worrying. But this felt better against the initiative than a lot of the other decks I've played. So it's got that going for it. And like, it's not as good as against the initiative as the red painter deck, but I think it's pretty serviceable, and it certainly feels better than the other mono white painter decks I've been trying to play. The Delver matchup we played was fine. I played blue red Delver into this many times, and my win rate on it is pretty high. So that's sort of one of the main differences between like red painter versus white painter, I think. So red painter is better versus initiative right now, and white painter is better versus Delver. So that's kind of your spread of matchups. I think their matchups are kind of similar, but flipped on those two matchups. The Hardened Scales matchup was really cool. We bricked a bit, but then got lucky to win that one. But I think we probably win the third game because we're reasonably well at blocking creatures and getting in the way, and we didn't have to worry about trample. And we can sort of combo over the top of them because we've got a bit more in terms of ways of finding our combo than like Grindstone Forge builds of this had. So that's fine. And yeah, that's about it for the matchup. So what do I think about the deck? Well, I have this in foil, so obviously you're going to hear me say I really like this. The Lotus Petals are fine. I would almost be tempted to just play more lands in that slot, perhaps. Like, the ability to go turn 1 Hushbringer in the initiative matchup is nice, but I'm not sure if that's enough, if you know what I mean. Because there were definitely games we had where the fact that it wasn't permanent mana felt a bit awkward. So if it was like a utility land that could sort of function as mana or a spell, might be slightly better for us overall. But I think in the initiative matchup, the Lotus Petal makes sense as a thing you want. And I guess it's initiative world and we're living in it, right? So fair enough. The double Hope of Ghirapurs, the hopes weren't great for us today. They weren't bad. They were just like sort of not really an entity. The Aether Vial was surprisingly good for us today, but that's not always the thing that comes up. The Portable Holes obviously wasn't really the matchups for that. We did a fair bit of taxing with Esper Sentinel, and Crucible of Worlds was great. Yeah, like I think this deck that Eddie has provided is pretty close to where I would want to be. I've got a paper tournament coming up in February sometime, and I think the format's going to change dramatically by then. But I'm probably going to look at adapting from here or play a Dark Depths deck, since you know I love Dark Depths. But yeah, I think this is pretty solid. I feel against decks that attack your mana, it can be very difficult to activate your Grindstone. So that's how we lost against the Sinkhole deck, was because they had Stifle, but if we'd have had more lands, we would have been able to activate another time before they killed us. We might have been able to get through we might have been able to get through eventually. So there is that as an option. I've seen people talking about playing Ancient Tombs. We did once upon a time have Ancient Tombs in this, but if you look at the cards we're trying to cast, we need like 1 colorless, 1 white pip. So Ancient Tomb is great with Urza Saga and great if you've got the combo going with your Painter Servant, but other than that, it doesn't really do very much. I think just having more lands might be pretty good. Like, I run Horizon Canopy in my list over one of the planes, I think, but maybe it'd be over a Lotus Petal. That's something to think about. I'm also pretty mediocre on Mox Opal. Like, we did fetch it, but we definitely had games where, like the last game, if that Mox Opal was something else, we would have been in a better spot. We just had this Mox Opal that couldn't really tap for mana or do anything. It's quite often a bad draw. It's something you want to get off as a Saga sometimes, though. So it's a little bit tricky on that one. But yeah, main deck seems more or less where I want to be. Sideboard wise, yeah, I don't have a problem with any of these things. They all make perfect sense to me. Grafdigger's Cage is my favourite one of the sort of 1 mana graveyardy hate pieces, purely because of what it does to elves. Hushbringer, I think, is a necessary evil in the format right now. Whether or not that's going to change, we'll see. The Deafening Silences, they didn't really do a great deal today, but they are very good against obviously like Storm matchups and stuff like that. I think it might be where you could cut, since we've got these Lotus Petals anyway, we do have these Ethersworn Canonists, so maybe we could look at changing things up slightly in those regards, especially since a lot of the turn 1 combo decks that we'd be looking to bring Deafening Silence in against are pretty cold to Leyline in the Void. So Reanimator and to some extent Dredge, but not so much. But it still hits Dredge, but Dredge isn't a big deck at the moment. I just played it the other day, so it's on my brain. But things like all the Epic Gamble decks, they're all into Echo of Eons plans. So Leyline in the Void kind of hits them on that angle again. And Ad Nauseam Tendrils has definitely spiked recently compared to the last year or so. So people are running that, which is a Past in Flames deck primarily. That's usually it's deterministic wins, but it can just Ad Nauseam itself a bunch of cards. So Leyline in the Void has text there and does stuff. So maybe these Deafening Silences aren't fully required. Now what you put in there instead, I don't know, but that's maybe a place where if you want to look at tweaking with numbers, that's a good place to look, I reckon. Yeah, Leyline is an interesting one, I think. I think it's kind of, again, a necessary evil, but here we are. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this today. This is a deck that's near and dear to my heart. We got a pity trophy, so that's something, I suppose. And I think there were some really good matches and plays going on. I had a good time, and it makes me a bit more confident about having this deck in foil now, because I've been playing lots of other variants. I was on the deck with the Stoneforge Mystics for quite a long time instead of Ingenious Smith, and that's obviously gone by the wayside now, so I was kind of feeling a bit down about this deck. But having played just a classic Eddie the Intern Plumber build, it feels pretty good. So it's given me a little bit of confidence back with the Monowhite Painter deck. All right. Before I sign off, if you're still here and you haven't subscribed to my channel, what are you doing? Subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out. It doesn't cost you anything. Likes and comments are great too. I like to know what you want to see. I want you to know if my wrap-ups are too long, because they're quite long, or if my deck techs are too long. Stuff like that is nice to know, as well as just things you want me to play or whatever. I've got a few requests. One of them being Death and Taxes, which I will play when Initiative gets banned. I just don't think it's really viable right now, so I don't really want to just throw away my play points playing that just yet. But it's on my queue to play in the reasonably near future, hopefully. All right, that's done for today. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.